Human trafficking has received a lot of global attention across the last 2 decades, and this was in large part due to the efforts of international organizations. A number of international instruments have been created over the past century or so to address human trafficking, all of which generally recognize the criminality of human trafficking and provided groundwork for our legal frameworks now. But the Palermo Protocol was really the first to define the offense and effectively criminalize it. The UN Office on Drugs and Crime, which is now the main IO body to combat global human trafficking, introduced the Palermo Protocol, or the Protocol to Prevent, Suppress, and Punish Trafficking in Persons, in 2000. The primary purpose is to facilitate a criminal justice response via worldwide domestic criminalization of human trafficking and related offenses. It's now the main legal instrument used to combat the issue. In just the decade that followed, 138 governments ratified the treaty, and now over 90% of states have domestic legislature criminalizing human trafficking. The UNODC has three primary focuses in its strategy on combating human trafficking. First is research and awareness building. There's a huge information deficit on the scope and severity of the human trafficking problem. And a lot of addressing this focuses on data collection. I'll talk a bit more about some of the challenges IOs face on this front a bit later on. The second focuses on promoting and implementing the Organized Crime Convention and its related protocols, including the Palermo Protocol, helping states ratify and implement them, and providing legislative and strategic assistance when states need them. Finally, the UN focuses on strengthening partnerships and coordination among UN actors and member states, as well as the broader community that works on combating human trafficking. But the UNODC and IOs continue to face a lot of challenges. The treaty was really just the first step. The International Organization for Migration, the UNODC, and UNESCO, along with a number of other IOs and NGOs, are collectively working on collecting data on human trafficking, and they face a number of obstacles. Firstly, human trafficking data is often highly politicized. Governments are politically motivated to overstate their efforts to curb trafficking and understate the scope of the problem within their own communities. Within their own countries. Secondly, human trafficking data, like data for a number of underground black market activities, relies heavily on secondary indicators such as the rate of prosecution, which can lead to really flawed estimates. And even if we assume best intentions that governments are sincerely trying to cooperate in data collection, a lack of technological and human capacity can seriously undermine these good intentions. In my memo, I include some specific efforts on data collection and some other weaknesses. Nonetheless, since the 2000s, IOs have embarked on ambitious data collecting initiatives. And though these data face political and empirical limitations, collectively they rely on a diverse set of methodology, and IOs have overall played an important role in gathering and disseminating this data worldwide. On the legal front, the Palermo Protocol has been impressive in its ability to get governments to pass domestic laws swiftly. However, the heightened global attention surrounding human trafficking has created an enforcement gap, with international actors strongly encouraging governments to pass laws without rigorous requirements to enforce them. And this is seen from the huge discrepancies between cases prosecuted and investigated versus cases reported. The protocol also it focuses heavily on the observable elements of trafficking, which is criminalizing human trafficking. Meanwhile, the protocol is really vague on how states should actually help victims and address underlying conditions that make them vulnerable to being trafficked. Specific obligations on how to help victims, such as providing financial assistance or temporary residency visas, requires spending state resources in really specific ways, and states' reluctance to cede some sovereignty makes the development of hard law that requires government to address the root causes of trafficking really difficult. On top of these challenges, the UN peacekeepers have become notorious in their abuse. The UN has faced a lot of challenges in controlling its agents on the ground, undermining a lot of the efforts from high level actors in the UN. So, what's next? It's clear from the surge in human trafficking that The protocol that focuses on punishing traffickers alone isn't enough in eradicating trafficking. There's a growing push among scholars and activists to approach it from a more human rights point of view, incorporating a consideration of victims into the global response to human trafficking. And IO's extensive efforts in collecting data can help inform how we do this. The UN can leverage its assets and information gathering to help develop more victim centric strategies. Nonetheless, since the Palermo Protocol, there's really no sign that the global momentum that has developed around human trafficking will recede anytime soon. We've witnessed a lot of this huge movement. Um, we've witnessed this huge movement towards greater awareness and legal action to address the problem over the past 2 decades, and it's really in large part due to the work of UNODC and other IOs. Thank you.